What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 22 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day, fresh off of another mechanical failure in Miami, but we have a massive upgrade package on the way, hopefully here today, going into the Spanish Grand Prix that's going to really elevate Haas back right up into the midfield fight. So you can see myself going through trying to get a few last moment upgrades in, but we are about to hopefully go from the bottom third to right up there with Alpine. You can see right here as we go into the simulation, we're looking for 2 greens. We got 2 greens, so 2 successful upgrades right there. We get another one, a third one, and then it would kind of get a little bit rough. We actually ended up getting 2 red ones as well, but nonetheless, these upgrades propelled us up to Alpine status, which means we're going to be right there in the mix, hopefully in Spain. But a huge upgrade package right there that really elevates this Haas car just a little bit more going into the Spanish Grand Prix. But, you know, it's been an up and down rookie season so far. However, the last 3 Grand Prix really hasn't gone the way that we would have liked, and we're hoping to change that here this weekend. You know, we look at Red Bull Racing. They've been absolutely dominant. They have won quite literally everything so far. They are unbeatable, and it could today, this weekend, be the weekend where they finally get beaten. There is an opportunity because it is supposed to be raining for the whole Grand Prix, looking like it's going to be an intermediate tire kind of weekend for basically the whole race. I love rain races, but not very much in F1 22 because the AI is usually really quick in the rain, and I struggle quite a bit against them here, and struggling, I guess, just in general, apparently, as we went for a spin in practice, but we would correct things, get better, and overall was having a pretty decent weekend here in practice. And you can see the little orange icon there on the engine on the right bottom of the screen. That was for the gearbox, so I am going to be replacing the gearbox before we head into the actual Grand Prix. Was hoping we could get maybe another Grand Prix, a full Grand Prix out of it, but unfortunately it wasn't really looking like it was going to be safe to do so. It was like flirting with like, I think like 70% or something like that, so I didn't want to quite take that risk. But Schumacher topped us in practice there, and he was on the hard compound tire compared to my medium, so that was a little bit concerning here now as we would put our focus though in on Q1 now with this massive upgrade package that we just brought. It could have been even more if the other 2 upgrades would have been successful, but still, I'm not going to complain. We have 3 successful ones, and it really has propelled us. But I'm expecting a chance to go for Q3 here today for hopefully not only myself, but for Mick Schumacher as well. And we know still coming into this weekend, we are what, 4-1 in qualifying against Mick Schumacher. However, we are 0-5 against Mick Schumacher in the actual Grand Prix. We have yet to beat Mick Schumacher in a race this season. Hopefully we can go 5-1 here in qualifying and make it 1-5 in the Grand Prix. But in Q1, it was pretty straightforward, and actually I set 2 laps, but my second lap, it was slower. It was on the same set of softs that I thought I could go faster on. I didn't. However, we were fortunate. We made it through still on that first lap. So we were P14. Schumacher was P11. He's been faster than me all weekend so far, so a little bit concerning on that front. It might be a 2-4 qualifying record against our teammate following today, because Schumacher's been pretty well on it here now as we would jump through into Q2. A notable exit though in Q1, Fernando Alonso was actually eliminated, so an early exit. Not sure exactly what happened there to the home driver, by the way, him and Carlos Sainz in their home Grand Prix here. But Q2, it was looking pretty good at the start of the lap for myself here now as we were coming through the now second sector and just trying to get the power down right here. You got to be so careful around this circuit at times with some of these corners. And then the final sector, I always struggle a lot in this final sector right here through this final chicane, just hopping up on those curbs, and you try to avoid that little sausage curb, but you want to get as close to it as you possibly can. But we come through the final turn across the line, and we were only P7 at this point in time. And as we started our final lap in Q2, we were P13, again slower than Mick Schumacher here on our final attempt. He was faster in practice, he was faster in Q1, he's been faster all of Q2. There hasn't been a moment on track all weekend long that I have actually had more pace than Mick Schumacher here, but we were finding some pace on this final lap here. Purple sector 1, I have a hard time believing that, but we had found about 0.3 of a second. Schumacher's coming through now to cross the line on the track map. You see, he does not go any better. He's still P12. I think we're about to out-qualify him and maybe even get into Q3 with this monster of a lap. We're having half a second, 0.6 of a second of the final turn, down the front straightaway, we're going to cross the line. It's going to be P9. We advance into Q3. We out-qualify Schumacher, make it 5-1 in the qualifying record against our teammate P9, and you see Schumacher ends up P13. So the first time all weekend we were faster than him. I don't know where that lap came from, because it was a bit of a heater and put us obviously into Q3, and now we head into Q3, and I knew I wasn't going to really have much here for the competition, and sure enough that would be the case. I would put up a competitive lap, but it wasn't anything to really do anything, you know, productive, I guess you could say, here in Spain. So we were P10, we came out of the final turn, it was going to stay P10, but overall, I will take that. Nonetheless, we advanced into Q3, and we were about half a tenth off of Pierre Gasly. George Russell on pole, trying to be the first driver to beat a Red Bull this season. In the raining conditions, it could be the perfect storm, quite literally, for Mercedes and George Russell this weekend, but only time will tell here now as we're ready for 33 laps of racing. We're going to send it to the grid with Crofty.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Perez, Sainz, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Leclerc, Norris, Ocon, Gasly, and Golden Boy, Tsunoda, Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, and Joe, Fernando Alonso, Latifi, Lance Stroll, and Sebastian Vettel, Albon, and Mick Schumacher. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
You saw the grid, you saw our teammate of Mick Schumacher takes a grid penalty. He starts at the back of the grid, and we are doing 2 intermediates and taking out a lot of fuel and getting ready for the formation lap.
Right then, the formation lap has started, and I must say the weather conditions aren't the best today for visibility and for grip. As each driver performs this lap, they'll be wanting to settle in and concentrate, as this race, in these conditions, will require a lot of focus. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can, and they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, everybody, let's try to finish, first of all, today, but honestly, if we just keep the car on track and make no mistakes, we could very well get some points today. There you hear myself to the team. We've had 2 DNFs in the last 3 races, and then we also had a mechanical issue in Imola. Just fortunately, it didn't take us out of that race, but we have had a lot of misfortune over the last few episodes. Our rookie season, it has been an interesting one so far already, and we're like, what, a quarter of the way through that, if that. So getting ready to go lights out. Once again, the main story, we have not beaten Mick Schumacher, our teammate, yet this season. Red Bull, they have not won or lost a race. They have won everything. Can they do it today in Spain? We're going to find out. It's going to be lights out here from the Spanish Grand Prix, and we get a decent start. It's not the best in the world. You can see Yuki Tsunoda's going to get the power down better than me. Valtteri Bottas gets alongside as well. George Russell, however, has a tremendous start, stays ahead into turn 1. Perez, Verstappen side by side with as well. You see Lewis Hamilton in the Ferraris behind of both Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, but it's a great start for George Russell. He's got multiple car lengths, several car lengths between himself and second place, and you can see Hamilton still Vettel scrapping it out with the Ferrari. I believe that's going to be Charles Leclerc. No, that's Carlos Sainz. It's the home driver, Carlos Sainz, scrapping it out wheel to wheel with Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton's going to hang on right there to 4th place here. As you can see, the wheel-to-wheel battles. I myself settled in just behind the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda there as Russell continues to lead the way, and it's going to be hard for Max Verstappen to be able to pass on track. It's hard to pass in the rain unless somebody makes a mistake. However, they're going to maybe have to resort to pit strategy to try and keep Red Bull's 100% win percentage alive into what race number 6 of the season, which would be very, very impressive here. Now, as you can see, the drivers ahead of us going at it, wheel to wheel. Gasly, Lando Norris there in the AlphaTauri, in the McLaren. I want a bit of this battle here. P11 is where we stand right now, wanting to be back in the points at the end of the first lap. Actually, Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo, both into the pit lane to replace their front wings. They had picked up some damage there on that opening lap, not affecting us, obviously. They were behind us to begin with Alonso not even making it into Q2 to begin with here in this Grand Prix. Overall, just happy that I was able to hang on to P11 for the time being here late in lap 2. Yellow flags actually out on the circuit. It's Pierre Gasly. He's having a mechanical failure right in front of us. The smoke's pouring out of the back of his car. Contact with Norris. Might have got some wing damage on the McLaren. We get past Tsunoda in the process. I practically run into the back of Norris myself. However, I was able to save the car and not get any damage out of that, but that moves us up from P11 to now P9, and then it wasn't long until things got worse for the McLaren. So Mark, he's going to come over the radio to me and tell me that Norris actually has now some issue and he is slowing down. So I see the opportunity. I put it into overtake and say, you know, it's now or never kind of deal. Let's make this move right here up the inside into the right-hander. We get the pass complete. Lap now 4, and we have moved up into P8 with a little bit of oversteer right there on the exit of the corner, but there we go, into the 8th position with 30 laps remaining in this Grand Prix. Things have really shaken up in just a matter of laps all of a sudden here as we try to hold on to this 8th position, and unfortunately I had zero pace for anybody in front of me. I had no chance here. As you can see, Schumacher actually up to P16, but he's struggling to work his way through traffic here as the two Williams of Latifi and Albon are absolutely going at it. Zhou Guanyu found himself in the pit lane here on lap 5. Actually, he had to replace the front wing after some contact with somebody on the circuit here. Now as we come straight through to lap 8, a bit of a moment for myself right there. Big moment actually, the oversteer in the car, and you can see that Tsunoda is able to slip through. So we drop down now into P9, and I was hoping I could stick with them, but I couldn't. I talked about it before. The AI are so good in the rain conditions, and I just had no pace for Tsunoda. He was long gone. Within a lap, he was over a second out in front of us. Fortunately, you can see as George Russell continues to lead the way over Verstappen by 1.1 seconds. Fortunately, Norris, with his issue that he was having, he did end up pitting, by the way, for that wing damage that he also got with the contact with Gasly, but he held up a lot of people and for a lot of seconds before he came into the pit lane. So I had a 7-second buffer to start over Lance Stroll. It was now down to 5.7. So that was something obviously that we had to keep an eye on here, but it felt like if I could just run a decently consistent pace, I could probably stay ahead of Lance Stroll. We were also getting ready to come into the pit lane here at the conclusion of lap 16, and now we're into that pit window being open. We got to pay attention to Verstappen and Norris, but here I am at the conclusion of lap 16, lap 17, coming in to put on a second and final, hopefully, set of intermediate compound tires. A very smooth pit stop from the crew, and it gets us out here with a perfect pit stop, really. Now, as you can see, though, things were actually starting to spice up between Russell and Verstappen. We're going to take a look at the pit cycle between those two drivers and see what goes on. Verstappen pits a lap before Russell, so he brings his car and puts on the intermediate compound tire. George Russell, well, his hand obviously has been forced. He pits a lap later, and he's going to put on another set of the intermediates, but here comes Sergio Perez, who's going to come in and hold Russell for an extra few seconds. So Russell just lost a little bit of time waiting for the Red Bull and the Ferrari as well that had just come into the pit lane, and that might have been exactly what Max Verstappen just needed to take over control in this Grand Prix, and it is, sure enough, Verstappen to the lead of the Grand Prix, and now Red Bull is trying to go 6-0 to start the season here, which is absolutely insane. We would come through after the pit cycle had run its course back up into P9, and from this point on, things would calm down drastically. I was in my own world here in P9. I was now 4 seconds behind Tsunoda, 3.5 seconds ahead of Stroll, and now it was 9 seconds behind Tsunoda by lap 24. He was continuing to drive away. Stroll was continuing to close in. It was pretty straightforward, but yeah, I mean, really nothing going on here in the closing final half of this Grand Prix. Nicholas Latifi, he would retire out of the Grand Prix with a mechanical failure. Still, 6 races in the season, not a single safety car. On increased safety car, by the way. I went and double checked. It is on increase. We're just having no safety car for whatever reason so far this season. But you can see lap 32 seconds now between myself and Stroll, just hanging on, managing this gap and bringing it home, really. We're finally going to beat Mick Schumacher as long as nothing goes wrong and make it a 5-1 record still in his favor. Final lap underway. Max Verstappen was already coming through this final sector and about to win yet another Grand Prix here now, as we're just holding off Lance Stroll and making sure he doesn't get too close. But here comes Max Verstappen out of the final turn to come through and win in Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix, and Red Bull starts the season out 6 consecutive wins. They are yet to lose this season as Russell and Perez round off the podium with Sainz, Hamilton and Leclerc behind, Ocon as well up there in P7 as we were rounding through ourselves through the final sector and just bringing it home 0.6 of a second ahead of fellow Canadian of Lance Stroll. So we're going to have 2 Canadians in the points here today. We'll take that with myself in 9th and Stroll in P10. Albon there with a nice run in P11. We finally beat our teammate Mick Schumacher. We're going to come through to cross the line for 2 points and our best finish in our Formula 1 rookie season. We will absolutely take that. We had decent pace, certainly not good pace, but overall happy with that. Driver of the day, it's going to be Lance Stroll, as we're going to head to the podium for the post-race celebrations.
A real team effort then, which has paid off in spades. A great victory here at the Spanish Grand Prix. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Rain always has the potential to liven up a race and mix up the order, and they've taken full advantage of that to claim the victory today. It's a bit of a lottery when the conditions are like this, but they've managed to stay on the circuit and have come out on top.
Here come today's winners. The team at Red Bull have done a phenomenal job recently, and it's clear to see that they've put in the work, and they should be so proud of the victory they've secured here.
Well, there you have it. Red Bull again, top step of the podium. Shock, shock. There is as well have Russell, who you could kind of say got robbed of his first win in Formula 1 here today. Very unfortunate for him, but he'll be looking forward to the next Grand Prix and see if he can make it happen in Monaco. Monaco qualifying going to be so important. And that's one I'm very excited for as well, to see how that one's going to go down, and hopefully we can get a good qualifying effort there, because that really makes your whole race. But we'll check out the point standings before we wrap this up, but that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the F1 22 driver career mode that I hope you guys are continuing to enjoy and support. But yeah, in the next one, we head to Monaco, one of the most prestigious races in Formula 1 there. As you can see, Verstappen now extends his lead to 29 points over Perez. Red Bull continues to be at the top of the board. We closed in a little bit on Mick Schumacher after a solid day in Spain, but that does it for me. Thank you all one more time for taking the time out of your day for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one in Monaco. Have a great day, everybody.